then you're going to have an energy lapse of 95% to 99% in the bolivar, energy lapse of 50% in the peso, energy lapse of 15% in the dollar, energy lapse of 2 to 4% in gold. You're going to have an energy accretion in Bitcoin. That's why we did what we did. It's just a simple, it started out as defensive survival strategy. It's like, well, we're going to freeze to death and suffocate if we don't do something. So it's a survival strategy. Then it became opportunistic. What we realized is we could issue $650 million of debt that pays 1% or less than 1% interest, and we could buy Bitcoin. And that just seemed like a good idea. Go short the dollar and go long the asset appreciating. And then it became strategy because we realized we could issue $1 billion of debt at 0% interest and buy Bitcoin. Right? And somewhere along the line, it went from a reflex to an opportunity to a strategy to an ideology.
Awesome, thank you. And so with all this excitement around the innovative nature of Bitcoin and all of this potential, there's still a lot of criticism. What are some of the criticisms that you've heard about Bitcoin from those who don't necessarily understand it? And how do you think it can be better explained to these individuals?
I think the criticism that comes from the technologists and the computer scientists and the people in the crypto industry or just others is, oh, it's not digital energy. It's just digital currency, or it's digital, or maybe it's digital property. That's well understood and appreciated now. But it started out as a currency. People, I think, have embraced that it's really digital property because it's low frequency money. It's not going to be a currency per se until it's legal to transfer it without taxable events. And of course, the legal part is a regulation put on by a nation state. So if the nation state makes it possible to transfer it without a taxable event, it could be a currency. Until then, it's really just a property. And I think we got past that hurdle for the most part. Now people go, well, it's not energy. It's not energy. If you look at Roman ruins, you will find that there are Roman mills that actually were used to grind grain and bake bread. And they would have a series of 20 water wheels. And if you calculate, they're harnessing hundreds of kilowatts of power to turn those wheels, and maybe megawatts of power to turn those wheels back 2,000 years ago to manufacture bread. The Romans raised the level of agriculture to a high standard. They were very efficient. Whereas, when you're engaged in a hunter-gatherer type society or a native society, whether it's Aboriginals in Australia or the Northern American Indians or the various societies in South America, you realize they just weren't channeling as much energy.
Right.
And because they weren't channeling as much energy, they can't generate the population density, and they're also not going to be able to create the munitions necessary. So they get displaced in short order. But then you have to ask the question, and there's the other issue, right? The biological issue, right? Clearly, smallpox and germs wiped out 90% or 95% of Native Americans. They never really got even a chance to fight. But having said all that, even when things equalize, if you have the same biological resistance to germs, and if you have the same exact weapons, then there are other concentrators of power that become very interesting. Agriculture is clearly a concentrator of power.
Bye.